I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one I really, really like. So the problem we have in today's world, I'm going to bring up a case that I already created earlier today. And so I've got a case in here that has one item, and this item is $100 in currency. All right. And I want to split out one of the $20 bills that makes up that currency. So the problem that we had prior to this update that I'm about to show you is when you split out an item, you had to go back into the parent item and manipulate the properties of that, because if you're splitting things out of an item, the parent needs to be modified because it's been manipulated. So, it was a real pain in the butt to do your split, and then somebody had to remember to go back into the parent and edit it and change all the parameters. Well, now we have built something to where when you split an item, if there are quantity values involved in the parent, we can now do a transaction and automatically update that. And what I mean by quantities, I'm talking about number fields. So like this works with currency, it works with drugs when you're talking about the amount of drugs. It does not work with text fields. Because I cannot, if somebody were to write $100 bill into a text field, I cannot, with any reliance, manipulate that text in order to make it to be what it needs to be. So we're only talking about number fields that can be manipulated. So the first things you have to do in order to get this to work is I have to go into Settings Organization, go to Forms and Field Settings up at the top, and then go to Item Split Configuration. The Item Split Configuration is the new area that we created to allow this to be done, okay? And so for the purpose of this demo, I'm gonna remove all these fields out of it. So for most of you, in fact, what I would do if you're considering doing this, just watch it now, go back and do it again later. There's documentation. I'll put this on YouTube out there so you can watch it later. Don't try to do it right now, all right? So go to Settings Organization, Fields and Forms Settings, go to the Item Split Configuration tab, and then when you hit the drop down, it's gonna show every one of your custom fields that has a number field inside of it. So for me, I've got a currency form and a drug form that have number fields in them. So when I select the currency form, it allows me to say which fields do I want to take place in this programming effort. I'm going to say all fields, because you could pull a quantity of any one of these values out of the parent and it should recalculate it. And so I'm going to select all of them. And just to finish it out, I'm going to go in and say, hey, I also want to put all of my drug fields inside of here too. So by going in and turning on all of these fields, what that means is when I go in to do a split, if the parent item is any one of these types of the forms or the fields, it's going to bring up the new field that I'm about to show you. Okay, so stick with me here for just a moment. Let's go back now and bring up that case. I'm going to bring up the one item that's inside that case, and we're going to do a split on it. And we're going to go down and say, I want to do a split. Because it's currency, the parent is currency, it's now going to pop up this menu. This menu is the new thing that got created. So this is where I can start to manipulate the parent variables while I'm still creating the new item. So it's telling me, hey, the parent description is $100 in cash. Do you want to manipulate that? And I'm going to say, yep, I do want to do that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it $20 in cash. I'm going to take out 4, and as you scroll down this screen here, you can see that the parent item has 5 $20 bills on it. I'm going to split out 4 of them. So by putting in the new quantity for the new item in here, it's automatically calculating, oh, well, hey, that's going to take the parent down to 1 item. Now, let's say, well, let's do this a little different, because let's say I just want to pull out one $20 bill. Let's switch that to be that. So now when I go through and do this and go down to the bottom and say, yep, there's no more manipulation of any other fields, I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to finish out the split item. The new item is going to be a $20 bill. In fact, here you can see this is about to become item 1.1. It's from the parent. I'm simply changing the values that are going to be changed in there. It automatically calculated the new quantities because I did that on that last screen. And now when I hit save and view all items in the case, when I go back to view these items, now look, the parent item is 80, the child item is 20, and I did not have to go back into that parent to make that manipulation. So that would be the same way with drugs. If you're splitting a drug and you're saying, hey, I'm pulling 3 grams of this substance out of a 10-gram parent, it will automatically allow you to recalculate that so that you don't have to go back in and do the parent item again. Okay, so new item is item 1.1. It is $20 in cash. I can see the parent is $80. And I believe, like anything else, if you go in and look at the history, you'll see where when I did this split right here, it took out the variables out of that parent. So it's still logging everything. You can see it went from $100 in cash down to $80 in cash. The primary difference here, and it might be minor, you did not have to go in and manipulate that parent. It automatically did it in the creation of the new item. Okay. So anyway, somebody asked the question, so are we unable to split a credit card from a wallet using this process? So no, you can still do the split of a credit card out of the wallet, but the difference is you're not typically manipulating any quantity fields at that point, because your wallet is not going to have a custom form that said, hey, how many credit cards are in this wallet? And you're answering 4, and then I'm pulling one out to where I'm manipulating that. So you absolutely can manipulate that, but I will say in that case, it's not going to introduce that menu where it changes the parent. So I guess maybe that's what you were probably trying to get at, Chris, and asking, or Sandy, and asking that question. Can I still manipulate the parent variable even if there are no quantity fields? And Sandy is confirming. See, sometimes I have to run around the lap a couple of times to get to what people are asking. And so, you know, I don't know an answer to that. I think in reality, that menu only pops if there's a quantity field involved. I'm going to make a note of that and ask about that, because I do agree, even if there are no quantity fields, I still want to manipulate the parent variable. I believe that got brought up. So I'm going to have to check on that and get back to you. I don't know that answer. That's a very good question. Max, who is out there listening, Max with Tracker Pods, can you write that down as one of the things I need to go back and check on later?
Yep, done.
Please. Okay. So somebody is asking the question, why would you split drugs, only taking a portion of an original amount to the lab? I'm not sure I totally understand that question. I mean, I think people split drugs all the time. You know, if you know, because, you know, let's say I have a pound of marijuana. I don't need to send an entire pound of marijuana off to the lab for testing. I might take a portion of that out of it. So Chris, who is asking that question, maybe if you could elaborate that on a little bit more. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at on that. All right, so somebody asked the question, can we turn off this feature? As a matter of fact, if you don't go into settings organization and go to forms and fields and go to item split, if you don't turn any of these configuration options on, which much to the chagrin of Sandy, who brought up that other example, it will not pop that menu up and there will be nothing going on. So if you do not want to do it with the auto adjustment of the currency fields or the drug, just don't turn anything on, which is probably the way it is in your system right now, and it will not do anything. So that's a good one. So Chris asked the question, why would you split money? I don't know. I'm sure somebody could come up with a really awesome answer as to why I split money. I'm thinking, you know, maybe somebody here, maybe I'll give you an example. This may be really off the wall, but what if somebody put in $100 in currency and you later found out a portion of that was counterfeit currency, but they put it in as a full item. And so now I'm going to split part of that money out in order just to separate it, because now I want counterfeit to be separate from a regular item. So yeah, in fact, so somebody threw that out. There's an example. They threw out counterfeit, and somebody else threw out contaminated with a drug. So yeah, you bring these in and all of a sudden you find, yes, which I would think if one piece of currency was contaminated with a drug, I would assume they're all contaminated with a drug. But yep, there's multiple examples right there. Somebody else threw out, just to overwhelm you, Chris, with examples of where this would be applicable. And they're rolling in, by the way. I'm getting all sorts. I can't read all these out, but lots of people are giving me examples. I'll throw one more out. A court order requires you to split them into different amounts for different people. So there's another one. So yeah, somebody else threw court splits. So Chris, there are a lot of examples where you would do splitting of currency or drugs, whether it's going to lab or court or whatever else. So, hey, thanks for throwing that out there. All right, let me see. Somebody asked a question, can you restrict that on certain users? I don't believe that the splitting functionality is something that you can limit to a specific type of user. So in reality, if you go into this item split configuration page and you go in and say, hey, yeah, I want to turn this on for these types of fields, anybody that does a split, it's going to pop up and do that. But I might also suggest, I think this is something that it really aids in the splitting process. So if it's good for one, I would think it's good for everybody. But you know that might be that might be up to you. Now, somebody else did throw out that you can restrict it based on permission levels as to who can update items. I believe splitting does require the ability to update an item. So if somebody doesn't have the ability to update an item, they can't do a split. I'm not totally sure if that's a factual statement. I think that is a factual statement. Okay, somebody has double confirmed that that is a factual statement. You can only split items if you have the ability to update those. So if your general officers don't have the ability to update items, they won't be able to do splits, and none of this will come into play. All right. All right, somebody is asking what I think is going to be a more complicated question, but let me read it. Is there a way to exclude a custom field from being copied over when we split an item? We have one field that we don't want copied when we split an item. People are always forgetting to change it, and it can cause issues. I'm wondering. So the answer to that is, Marie, there is no way to prevent that right now. I think that's a really good suggestion. I think that we could put in maybe a setting somewhere where you could say, hey, when somebody does a split, I don't want a particular field copied. So I'll write that down, or Max will write that down as a note, and we can toss that in the development queue somewhere. That seems like that would be doable. So thank you for asking that question. Okay. Wow, I thought I was going to blow right through all of these and there wouldn't be any questions or comments, and here we are. I'm getting all sorts of feedback, which is really, really good.